if I told you that confidence you've what I'm sorry, what if I told you the confidence you've been chasing in your entire life, that unshakable swagger, that magnetic calm under fire, that voice that says I belong here, isn't missing. It's been stolen, hijacked. By who? By the same system that profits when you play small. Algorithms designed to addict you to insecurity, workplaces that reward compliance over courage, families that mistook fear for protection. But here's the secret: your confidence isn't broken, it exists in a coded standby mode. And today, we're jailbreaking it. You felt it, right? The gut punch of hesitation mid meeting when you hold back your boldest ideas, the millionth replay of a cringe moment at 3 a.m., the panic that hijacks your throat on a first date. What if I told you none of this is random? It's a neurological heist, one you've been gaslit into calling just how I am. So here's today's thermonuclear question. What if the doubt choking your potential isn't your fault, but a curated script the world sold you? In this episode, we're exposing how elite high performance teams hijack their brains to radiate lethal calm in chaotic situations, how A list celebrities flip stage fright into raw magnetism. No, it's not fake it till you make it. In the billionaire's playbook for turning no into unshakable allegiance. But this isn't about them, it's about you, your brain, your legacy. We're dropping three neural rebellions you can deploy in the next 48 hours to flood your veins with audacity, force others to mirror your dominance, and resurrect Lazarus level confidence in mid meltdown. This isn't self help, this is a revolt. So smash that subscribe button, tag your most self sabotaging friend, and let's reclaim what's already yours. Your confidence is coded in your DNA, not luck. Let's activate it. Now, Unc, you know how I like to do. We kind of like to start things off at baseline just to get people acclimated and to get ourselves acclimated as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
But before I do that, I would want to start with a disclaimer. We don't do many disclaimers, but I think it's necessary to do a disclaimer for this one because we're going to be talking about confidence. And the disclaimer I want everybody to understand is that do not confuse what we're talking about with arrogance. And I ask that you don't confuse it in your brain with potential arrogance. So, what we're going to talk about today is going to kind of like borderline and push you to the limit. So, just understand we're not telling you or suggesting to you that you should become arrogant. We're simply talking about confidence and how to overcome that thing that is keeping you from moving forward and things of that nature. Okay. So, first question of today is, how would you describe confidence?
How would I describe confidence? Simply, I think confidence is believing in your abilities, believing in your skills, believing in who you are, um, and your abilities, even though and even when things are not necessarily perfect, right? So believing in yourself or your abilities, even though things may not be perfect in your life, or even though the situation may not be ideal. In the military, one of the things that we learned early on was sports, right? So sports is something that you do on your weapon in case your weapon malfunctions, right? So if your weapon malfunction, you do this, and it's an acronym. So the thing about that is they drilled that into us over and over again. They practice it. We talked about it. We sang cadence. We sang songs about sports and all of these different things to the point to whereas we were confident in our ability to perform sports if we were in battle and our weapon malfunctioned. So I think that's an example of having confidence. I do think that there is some skill set that goes along in that, but I think this kind of goes back to believing in yourself and your abilities. When you are confident, when you believe in your abilities, when that situation comes, when you are being attacked, you can attack back. And if you have a problem with your weapon or in life, then you can perform sports or you can perform a function on your weapon or something in your life in order to whereas you can get back on track and keep it moving. So I think at the end of the day, It comes down to simply believing in yourself and your abilities, even though the situation may not be ideal.
As I listen to your explanation, it is pretty much textbook. That's if you go look it up in the dictionary, that's pretty much what it's going to tell you. It's going to tell you that it's the quality of being certain of your abilities, or of having trust in people, plans, or the future. Um, but I kind of struggle with that definition.
Like
Um,
quality. I did like the word you said, quality, though.
right, right, right. Um,
I don't know why I wrote it down for some
no, no, no,
reason.
no. You're fine. I was laughing at something Vic said. Tell me,
Okay.
he's not confident in his beard. Um, Stop it, man. You're making me lose focus. So it's like, so I do like that, but I struggle with that definition because
Mhm.
your root word of confidence is confide. So if the
Okay.
root word of confidence is confide, then I like to go back and kind of see what that really means. And confide to me is to tell someone about a secret or a private matter while trusting them not to repeat it to others. And then the suffix ence simply means the quality of, like you said in definition, or state of, or action, or process. And so when I do the wordplay of it, and away from what Webster tells us, then
Mhm.
in my mind, I conclude, and I'm asking you whether or not this could actually make sense. Is it possible that the level of confidence that I possess is based upon what someone told me about me, and I embraced it because I trusted them?
I think some confidence can come from that, but I think for the most part, it comes from it's internal. I think it's based off of your level of maybe the things that you have went through, or your beliefs, and more so your situation versus what someone says. But I do think that what someone says or communicates can be verification of confidence, but I don't know if I guess what I'm thinking is that you could say something to me and that could make my confidence grow. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, sure, but I'm going further back than that, because
Okay.
I think at some point we got to go back to the beginning, like your
Okay.
upbringing, what you're taught, what your teachers taught you, and all that other great stuff. So
Okay.
that's the beginning stages of your confidence, and then based upon what happens afterwards, that either validates, it validates what you believe about yourself, and then at some point, you go through those different phases and different things that you do, and then based upon what you're doing and what you're focused on at that particular point in time, now my confidence grows because I know that I can do this thing, and I do this thing very well because people keep giving me feedback saying you're really good at doing this. So my
Mhm.
confidence grows in this arena because that's what I spend a lot of my time. And that's kind of like what I'm talking about. Like somebody at some point in time told you something about you, and you trusted them. Therefore, I believe the thing. And therefore, if I believe the thing, then it must be true. Right. Because that's how most of us live our lives, in the modern age, right? I believe it, therefore it must be true, as opposed to looking at what the truth says and then I believe the truth. So that had to have, in my opinion, now again, and y'all know me, I love somebody to tell me that I'm wrong because I'm
Mhm.
getting ready to learn something now. So at some point, at some stage, my confidence was created based upon what somebody told me about me, people who look like me and things of that nature. And then from there, it grew, or it maintained, and I kind of held it or whatever. So just my thoughts.
But how did you know what they were telling you was accurate or correct? You know
You
what I
know?
mean? To where you embraced it as, you know what I mean? Like if I'm just like, yeah, coach, man, you got like the nicest bald head on YouTube, right? But I mean, I'm just saying it could be anything. You know what I mean? So with that, me saying something like that, how does that play into it? You know what I mean? Because I may truly believe that, but also that's subjective. You know
Sure.
what I'm saying?
Sure. So to your question, how do you know it's true? You don't. You
Yeah,
just trust them. Like, think
just
about it.
trust them.
Think about it. Did you ever believe in Santa Claus?
It's probably at some point, I'm sure I
Right.
did.
Exactly. Because the person who told you about Santa Claus, you trusted them. And
Mm,
I think that's the level I'm talking about, to where Dr. Lisa just asked the question, can't that go the other way around? Absolutely. After it has a beginning stage. It has to
mm,
begin someplace. And then from there, either you have people who speak in you that gives you confidence, or you have people who try to take away from that because of them saying something that's negative that you never wanted to hear about yourself. But
mhm.
one way or the other, I think it has to have a starting space, a starting place. And once that place is now, established, now confidence grows from that point forward.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I like getting new information, so then I get to process.
But I don't think it's new. I just started
Mhm.
way earlier than where everybody's mind is right now.
Maybe that's what
think
it is
I think
then.
everybody is focused on the here and now, but I'm talking about confidence overall. Because
Mhm,
at some point you got to go back and understand, where did I gain this confidence from? What was the belief system of those people, and why was I given the confidence at that level? Why was I not given confidence up here? Not to blame them, but just to understand. And then from that point moving forward, then we have some other things that we can encounter. But I think, to your point, to Dr. Lisa's point, to Vic's point, and everybody else's point, like, sure, people can give me information right now, like you said about the bald head thing, right? That might
mhm.
boost my confidence today. But there may be another side of that. My confidence might be high enough about my bald head already, and you're just validating it based upon what you're saying. So I think
Yeah,
all of those things can be true within the scope of understanding where we are today. But how does that, like when we look at younger people and things of that nature, how do we instill confidence in them? So that's why I am going through this level of scrutiny when it comes down to the word confidence, because at some point, I think your confidence is instilled in you based upon somebody you trusted.
okay, I like that. So now let's can we go back to my scenario about us learning how to shoot and just operate sports in the military?
Sure.
So when did we get that confidence that we could perform sports on our weapon? Was it when we were able to perform it and sergeant said, "Good job, private"?
Yes.
Is that when the confidence came? You know what I mean?
So for the most part, yes, but it also
Yeah.
depends on where you came from as well. Because
Mhm.
some people were taught how to shoot ever since they were like 12, 13 years old.
See, I wouldn't. First
Right,
time I shot a
right,
weapon legally was when I went into the military.
right. So that's why I say it depends. Like, for those people who were taught it young, when they picked
Mhm.
up a rifle in the army, they were confident holding that rifle. They knew in their heart, like, yep, I'm about to hit every last one of these targets. But like
Mhm.
you just said, that was my first time picking up a rifle. So it's like,
Mhm.
I ain't too comfortable about this drill. You know what I'm saying? You
Mhm.
don't move. You stay right there now. And then what did they do? Whenever I got a weapons jam drill sergeant, and they come and snatch the weapon from you, and then they do it because they didn't want you to waste time on the range when those targets are popping up and going down. So when
Mhm.
did you get confidence? Repetition.
Yeah.
Repetition was the thing that gave you confidence in doing the thing. There has to be some type of evidence that you're doing a thing, to where you can see within yourself that you can validate how good or how well you're doing that thing.
I like that we stayed on this long. I
Mhm.
really like it. I like where I like how it all kinda came together. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. And
Chat
l
too. They
I'm
have
about to say, man, I'm loving what they're saying, man. Y'all keep them coming, keep them
Mhm.
coming.
Absolutely.
Welcome. Good to see you guys who just came in while we were talking. But we got a jam-packed show, and y'all know we try to keep this right around an hour, so we're gonna keep it rolling. Keep your comments coming, though. I'll bring them up one by one. Um, First stage that the first talking point we're going to talk about is unmasking the neurological malware stealing your power. I really do and wholeheartedly believe that that is a thing, because unfortunately a lot of us have been brainwashed, and I'm going to say it to that extreme intentionally. Your hesitation isn't a personal failure. It's a hack installed by societal systems. And I won't go into detail because that's going to be part of the question, right? That profit from your self-doubt. Studies show neural pathways for fear and compliance are overstimulated, equating to confidence circuitry. So that said, let's talk about those systems. What societal systems has most aggressively installed neurological malware in your brain, and how has it specifically sabotaged confidence? I won't say yours, just ours in general.
All right, societal system. I think one of the basic ones that maybe we all can agree on or not is, even though I am part of it, is the educational system. I think that if you look at the educational system, um, and certain things that are taught and how they're taught, it can definitely sabotage your confidence. I look back to when I was in education. I mean, when I was in high school, I graduated high school in 93. So that was 32 years ago. And everything was about going to college, go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college, right? So when I'm looking at my left and my right, I don't have any confidence about going to college or in my abilities to do the work. I'm looking at people over here, they making A's and B's, and they ain't studying, or at least I think so, because they cutting up in class and different things like that. But I didn't have the confidence to go to college or anything like that, because I thought that college was hard. I thought that high school was hard. I didn't value education. All of these things went into it, but that's one of those systems that we are all part of, or most of us have been at some point, with the educational system. And I think for a large group of people, it has kind of sabotaged their confidence. I've seen kids already. I've seen kids in so because I'm a school counselor, I get access to records. I see all of their transcripts, their grades, all the way back through kindergarten. So I see students every single day who sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade got um honor roll, A's and B's and stuff like that. And then they in ninth and 10th grade, and then the grades go down, and they find themselves alone. They hadn't found their little peer group and stuff like this. And I've only been at the high school 1 year, and I can just already see the transition. And a lot of that has to do with confidence. I look at who they're hanging around when I see them in the hallway and stuff like this, and I get it. So I think, to kind of close it all out, I think that the education system is one of those things that, at least for me, kind of sabotage some of my confidence early on, because I never felt like I measured up academically to go and do anything into college. And I actually went to college right after, and I got kicked out. So, but that's another show.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I agree. I think a lot of it comes from the education system, but I mean, a lot of this. Look at the chats, man. Like they're hitting them on the head.
Mhm.
Education system, social media, self-image, definition of what beauty is, and again, remember that self-image was instilled in you at some particular place. Um,
Mhm.
society standards of beauty, confusing influence with power, and even with that, because that can be a slippery slope. But I would say confusing power as influence, because at the end of the day, there is no, most of the things that we believe is power is not power. Like you hear, money is power. That's not necessarily power. We believe it's power, therefore it is. So in essence, we give power away based upon like the pre-programming that exists. So it's a lot of them that exist out there. I love the fact that you started with the education system, and then I'll go from the education system to the parenting system, because in all actuality, they work hand in hand, right?
Mhm.
That becomes foundational in, this, and I hate to say brainwashing as a parent, but yeah, I mean, think about it. I can't give you what I don't have, and what I do have, I give it to you. But then by that same token, it's like, so yeah, and I love that one. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power. Implementing knowledge. That's the thing. So it's like it's all these different things that we have that runs around in our head, and then I think somebody said the news media. The news media is a huge influencer and fearmonger when it comes down to the things that you actually have to deal with. Like I will be honest with you, when I was young, I used to study the weather pattern. I used to go to the encyclopedias, bro. Yeah, but that's how long
Mhm.
I was being. I used to go to the encyclopedia and start thumbing through it, and I look up tornadoes and hurricanes and whirlpools and all kind of stuff like that, because those things fascinate me. And it's like they hit the news so much now. I can see how those things can be like intimidating to most people. It's like when a bad storm comes over, you're looking out the window like, okay, you know what I'm saying? So it's like
Mhm.
things like that. And I think all of that stuff is taught, is projected, is passed down. And unfortunately, that becomes the beginning of your life at that particular point in time. And the reason why I say they're connected, because I wrote a white paper when I was in school, and that paper was all about how the school system, the teachers, and the parents are supposed to work hand in hand for the development of the child. But the issue is that if you exist in a community to where mama and daddy, or if it's just mama, they got to work. So they can't attend this meeting. They can't come and meet the parents' night, and they can't come to PTA, and they can't do any of those things. So how does that connection work with parent and child? And how does the child fit in the midst of it to where the child feel comfortable by opening up honestly and openly with the parent? And I think a lot
Mhm.
of times what ends up happening is that the child, they're kind of intimidated and they're kind of afraid to expose reality at school. So they literally are living a facade all day for 5 days a week. And then they really get to be themselves on Saturday and Sundays, or when they get home from school and get to go out and play. So it's like all of those things factor in. And then we wonder why we got the era where we have what is it? Introversion is the new thing, the new hotness. Like it's cool to be an introvert, right? Because we have made that the norm. Your thoughts?
I think yes. I also think that there is a group of people who do the opposite, to where they are themselves at school because they can't be themselves at home. I've had some
Mm,
students in my office, and it was like, I can't, my dad don't like me being like this, so I come to school and I'm like this at school, so um yeah, like I've seen some students out in public and I've seen them in the school and I'm just like, all right, is this the same student? They look totally different. And in certain communities, um, little boys supposed to be boys. So when they want to look differently, they can't do that at home. So they do it at school, So that's the other side of that.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And listen, greatly appreciate everything you guys are saying. I'm loving the comments. Keep them coming. I think you guys, like we said, but like we always tend to say, you guys are a functional part of these conversations, and we greatly appreciate you. If you have not hit that like button yet, please. I'm sorry, you about to say something?
No, finish and then I go.
Yeah. If you have not hit that like button, go ahead and hit that like button. Again, doesn't matter what platform you're on, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, hit that like button and share it to your platform. Go ahead, brother. You got the floor.
Man, can you imagine what that does to your confidence as a student in high school, knowing that you have to, like you said, the facade, you're one way at home and you're a different way at school. You know what I mean? Um, man, I could man. I just like I'm thinking I got certain students pictured in my head right now, and I can only imagine, the confidence, and I see, you know, the thing about being in a high school, the students, that's when they're really, they're starting to kind of figure out who their little groups are and stuff like that. When they get there in ninth grade, it's like it's a big thing, it's a big experience from them. For most of them, it's a lot bigger school, and it's a lot more people, and they're the babies now, and then they're seeing men and women in school with beards and everything like this, and so I think that when you're having to live that double life, I can only imagine, like what that does to your confidence and how it's hard to move past and navigate all of that stuff along with all the other stuff. And then the reality of it is a lot of us are still dealing with these things as adults. You know what I'm saying? Confidence, I know as a young adult, I still was dealing with confidence issues, even in the military. And then, I remember as a staff sergeant, I had a little bit, I think probably I had the false of biggest false sense of confidence as a sergeant, as an E5, because you finally get them stripes and you like, man, I'm a sergeant now. You know what I mean? You better bow down to these three chevrons, and then, it kind of wear off a little bit because you start realizing, the confidence you got, it ain't really nothing when that E7 or the E6 and stuff walk by. You realize you're at the bottom of the boat. You know what I mean? So I do remember a time where I had, a lot of false sense of confidence early on. But like I said, a lot of adults still deal with confidence issues and stuff like that. And I think it's pretty common for people to struggle with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Common thing.
Absolutely. And I'm like, again, they're lighting it up in the chat. I've seen some other stuff, the church, like I mean, they're naming it introvert. I think somebody said claiming to be an introvert can also be a smokescreen. I do love that comment. You
Mhm.
guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. So let's move on. Listen, again, this is where we're going to start giving you the secrets. Again, share it, hit the like button, and I think we're going to enjoy it. Okay. Secret number one is the dopamine override. Flood your brain with fearless swagger. Okay. Um, in essence, what we're talking about is rewire fear into fearlessness via dopamine stacking. So every time you act boldly, and unfortunately, even faking it, you trigger dopamine surges that rewrite neural pathways. A-listers use micro rituals like power poses and victory playlists to override doubt. It's almost like you're doing something that is going to be high stress, and you use some type of music to kind of get you excited, to get you motivated to do a thing. And it kind of takes the nerves away, and you tend to focus on that. So I kind of want to start off a little different here because we're going to start off with Jake. Jake freezes during client pitches despite knowing his product is revolutionary. His mentor challenges him to send 5 cold emails today, even if his hands shake. The question about Jake is, which dopamine override strategy is Jake mentor using? Now, I'm going to give them to you. That way you ain't got to worry about it. So, number one, avoiding risks until confidence feels natural. I'm sorry, this is A, right? B, taking bold action despite fear to trigger dopamine driven rewiring. C, repeating affirmations silently. And D, researching client weaknesses to reduce anxiety. I'll say them again. A, avoiding risk until confidence feels natural. B, taking bold action despite fear to trigger dopamine driven override or rewiring. C, repeating affirmations silently. And D, researching client weaknesses to reduce anxiety.
For me, oh man, hold on. B, bold action.
Okay. And if have you ever found yourself in a situation like that, like where bold action kind of helped to rewire the way you think about it?
Man, I did it today. Bro, I'm telling you, look, I was supposed to work out at 4:30. It was about 4:15. I told Shell, I was like, look, she hit the thing. She was like, she hit the button. She was like, Alexa, um, she said, Alexa, set a timer for 15 minutes. And I was like, all right, I got 15 minutes to take a nap. And man, I got lazy. I ain't even do 15 minutes. I did about 2 or 3 minutes. And I was like, man, I got to get up. Man, so I had to kind of like just get up and just go get dressed and then get outside. I mean, I'm still dragging. I did not want to go out there today. So I went out there, and the first thing I did, I just got on a rower, and then I saw it said set your what do you want to do for your workout? And I was like, man, I'm just gonna, because in my mind, I'm just gonna do 1,000 meters, and then I saw the 2,000, and then I saw the 5,000. I was like, man, bump it, hit the 5,000. So now I'm locked in. So I was like, well, I need some help. So I got David Goggins on YouTube. So I'm blasting David Goggins and rowing. But I had to do all of that. I had to put something out there, like he was talking about the music and stuff like that. Like I had to use that to get to it. Once I got into the workout and stuff like that, I was fine. But I needed a little push today, and I don't know where it was came from. So I was just do it, So there was definitely something. So when you was talking about, I was like, man, it just happened to me not too long ago. So yeah, man, good
Yeah,
stuff.
I'll share one that I know both me and you have in common, and I don't know if for you it happened the same way, but for me with podcasting, like
Hmm.
I started off audio podcasting for those who didn't know, and
Yeah.
I talked about doing video podcasting, and I used to do like a coaches meeting once a month, and it was like 4 or 5 of us to get together. We'd talk about a book, we talk about some of the things we got from that book, and then we were like, okay, so what do you want to accomplish the next month? That was like our like every meeting thing. And so one meeting, I said, I'm gonna start a podcast.
Hmm.
And it was funny because now I've put out in the atmosphere, I now have accountability partners. And so when we came back the following week, I'm sorry, the following month, one of the big things they asked us, hey, Dwayne, how's that podcast coming? I'm like, well, see what had happened was, and y'all know that's how the beginning of every great story starts. See what had happened was. That's the beginning of the lie. That's really what the
Hmm.
truth. Um, and that went on for 2 consecutive months, and then, no joke, good friend of mine, Natasha Orsley, she asked me the 3rd month, she said, "How can I help?" And when she asked me that question, I knew at that point, like, even with her helping, it doesn't really matter, I still need to push through. So, no joke, by the time the following month came on, I hit the button. And I'm sorry, let me back up. But in between that time and me and you talked, that's when you invited me on to um, Elevated Dialogue. And
Hmm.
when I joined Elevated Dialogue, that was my first time being on camera on podcast. And I'm like, man, why do people want to listen to me? Because you have all of this stuff in the back of your head, that's going on and all this other great stuff. And you got to kind of like push through that. And so that was it. My first time doing it was on Elevated Dialogue. And then at the same time, I was doing my own thing. And so it was cool doing the Elevated Dialogue because, I can lean on you because you were really running the show. But on this side now it changes. Man, the first time I hit that live button, I was sweating. Like people couldn't really tell. I don't think they could really tell, but like I'm sweating, I'm hot, I got
Hmm.
the fan going, like all types of things going on. Um, but at the end, I felt relieved. Like there was a degree of confidence that I got just by completing the thing. I don't even know if I did it well. I just know I did it. And here's the other side to it. Well, like you said previously, was subjective. So now in my mind, like sure, other people got their opinion. That's their subjective opinion as well. But accomplishment to me was that breakthrough moment. That was the thing. So now the carrot on the stick for me was completion. Then I moved from completion to the desire to do it and do it to serve other people. Once I started focusing there, completion wasn't the option, the thing anymore. It was like create the program to serve the people, not for you to look good. Because that's the thing that I think we get stuck at. We get so focused on how we look, how other people see me when they see me. Who cares? Who cares what other people quote unquote see when they see you? Focus on how well you serve them. If they give you their time, if they give you their ear, have you taken the time to put together a quality show to where when they walk away from that show, they'll be like, man, that was a good show. That's the thing. That's the thing. That's the change for me. The change for me is like I stop worried about what they see when they see me, and I start worrying more about the level at which I serve them. So now the dopamine for me has changed. And I think that's the key. And I think that's the key when you take it. And remember, I said that the disclaimer, going from it's not arrogance when you do it the right way. And when you do it the right way, it's like, man, it's actually fun. I love doing it now. So that was my example, and like I said, I don't know what it was like when you first started, but I'm assuming that it was something similar.
Way similar.
Okay.
A lot of sweaty armpits. More for more than a year. It was over a year. Before I stopped. Probably longer. Probably closer to. It was definitely over a year before I stopped sweating, like the entire show. You know, even though I was on the show, and I'm wondering if it was because of a lack of confidence, and the lack of confidence came from in my mental and me thinking that I'm not confident in my abilities, and I think that's what it was early on. I'm confident in my abilities right now, that I can run a show and I can run a podcast. And again, like you said, This is not arrogance. This is not ego, but this is, 3 years of doing it. You know what I mean? I have, you know what I mean? Like I talked about earlier, I have a calm assurance is word that I wrote down earlier, and just believing in myself and my abilities. I've done it for for 3 years or so. So it's not like I don't have the data to show that I can do it. So, again, when I started off, I didn't have the confidence.
Yeah.
I was like, bro, anybody trying to be behind no camera? Why would anybody want to listen to me? Why? What is it that comes out of my mouth is going to be of value to anybody,
Yeah.
on the other side of who's listening? And if you see, here we are 3 years later, and there's people in the chat and there's people watching. There are going to be people that's going to watch this, throughout the week or something like that, So, and that has helped with confidence too, to hear feedback when you say, hey, so and so called me, said, hey, we had a good show. And when I relay to you, hey, hey, I talked to so and so, and they was like, hey, man, y'all did a really good show. All of those things are reassurance and helps build our confidence, that that we're still on the right path, man. And
Absolutely.
I'm just going to say this, we've been doing this for over a year, man, and I really appreciate the journey that we've been on, along the way. On a journey, there are pit stops, and you want to be okay with the pit stops that you take along the journey. And I'm happy and content and excited and glad that I have been taking this pit stop with you over the last year here on Coach's Corner.
I mean, I appreciate you saying that, man, and likewise. And to again, like I said previously, this is enjoyment. I enjoy hitting this live button with you,
Yeah.
and then talking to the people. And again,
Mhm.
to my point previously, it has to be quality for them. That's
Yeah.
what's important to me these days. So that takes us to point number two. And again, this one's really going to sound pushing the envelope, pushing up to the edge. Mirror neuron hijack. Make others mirror your unshakable vibe. Your brain is wired to mirror whoever holds power in a room. Billionaire negotiators use alpha anchoring, strategic postures, tones that force others to reflect their dominance. So it's like I don't know. It's like whoever you perceive to be the most important person in the room or the most profitable person in the room or whatever the case may be. However they dress, you kind of want to like emulate that. I will never forget when I was in the army, we had a, it's funny. I'll spare the total details of it, but I had a commander who used to walk when we wear our vests. He used to walk with his hands in his vest just like that, stuck
Yep.
in stuck in the sleeves. And every officer in the staff started doing the same thing. It is hilarious to me. And so, that being said, my question is what inauthentic habit do we default to in groups? And what alpha tone or posture could replace it to force others to mirror our vibe? I'll say it again just to give you time to process it, think about it, so forth and so on. What inauthentic habit do we default to in groups? And what alpha tone or posture could replace it to force others to mirror your vibe? And I'll start. That way, you can continue to think about it. I talked about it a few seconds ago. We get in the groups and we become hyper focused on ourselves. So we're in a group setting and we're focused on me. How do I look? Whether or not I give this right or whether or not I said this right or how did I stack up compared to my peers or this, that, and the third. And I'll talk about me. I remember when I first started working at the Cyber Center of Excellence, I looked at all of my peers and I looked at how much different they were. They were all retired officers. I was retired senior enlisted. They all had degrees. I was working on my degree. So it's like all of those things were factoring in. I'm talking graduate degree at that point. So all of those things started factoring in. And then from that point on, it became a loop that kept going around in my head. I don't measure up. I don't stack up. How do they see me? And then I felt that once I got the opportunity to do something, whether it was teach a class or, whatever that looks like, or talk in front of them, I had to do really well. So again, going back to the notion, I had to be twice as smart and work twice as hard, right? So those things became my inauthentic habit. And then when it came down to it, I learned I could replace that by realizing that stop focusing on what you look like all the time. Stop focusing on how people perceive you and just focus on being the authentic version of yourself. Focus on being that person that add value to the community. Focus on serving other people. Focus on, giving positive affirmations, feedback, things of that nature, and making an authentic portion of your character, not something that you're doing just to fit in or be accepted. So that's kind of like my response to this one.
Yeah, you had said something early on about, saying this or saying that, right? So, and that started making me thinking about, how a lot of people pretend to agree with certain things just to kind of avoid tension and different things like that. So they kind of just agree to certain things. So I think that's where my mind kind of went with this, Um, when you have a group of people, everybody's not going to always agree and not going to always think the same thing. Sometimes you have people that'll come in there and they'll say some stuff that's off the wall or whatever like this. And I think one of the worst things that you can do sometimes is agree with those people. You know what I mean? Just to avoid just to avoid the tension and stuff like that. I think sometimes you need to. I think sometimes you need to address the situation. You could be firm about it, whatever like that. And I think that, people in the group would eventually follow along because they understand that, hey, this is not I guess what I would say, this is not necessarily appropriate behavior or whatever like that for the group. So that's kind of where I wanted to go. I think, mine was, pretending to agree to avoid tension. And like I said, I think that's a inauthentic habit that, a lot of us may have been guilty of. I can probably say, I've grown, but I can say with confidence that I probably have been guilty of that at some point in my life, just agreeing to certain things, just being because it's part of the group.
Yeah, groupthink is a serious problem in groups.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times, I think most people have been a part of that to a certain degree, especially when you start going up the higher echelons of the power dynamics. Um,
Mhm.
we start to believe that, I'm in the room, I need to agree with whatever, so forth and so on. So I think that's
Yeah.
another great thing. Let's talk about Lena's team real quick, right?
Lean
'Cause
lean
Lena's team dismisses her ideas in meetings. Before the next one, she practices power poses in the bathroom and enters the room first, claiming the head seat. So, I'm sorry, I missed the question. I just gave you the question.
Mhm.
Little typo, little dismissed. That's okay. The question is, how is Lena? Did I not put in the right place? Nope, I just missed it all together. That's okay. I'll just read it to you. How
Okay.
is Lena leveraging mirror neurons to hijack the room's perception? A, over preparing her slides to outshine others. B, using physical dominance, postural position to subliminally command authority. C, avoiding eye contact to stay under the radar. Or D, agreeing with critics to avoid conflict. Again, how is Lena leveraging mirror neurons to hijack the room's perception? A, over preparing her slides to outshine others. B, using physical dominance to subliminally command authority. C, avoiding eye contact to stay under the radar. And D, agreeing with critics to avoid conflict.
Um, I think B, physical dominance.
Have you ever seen that in
Oh,
play?
huh.
You never seen that in play? It's like it's
Just
like
on some TikToks.
Yeah, it's like the posture that people have. It's like
Mhm.
they'll stand in a room and they'll put their hand sometimes they put
Yeah.
their hands on their hips, sometimes they cross their arms and things of that nature. Like those things. You'll see it's like a over, I don't want to say over, but it's like a very dominant stance that they try to take. And then a lot of times they'll go stand at the head of the table, just to kind of give the perception that they actually are the leader or whatever in that room. And I think that's
Mhm.
so. Yeah, it's interesting, but I think you can use it. It just doesn't have to be overbearing, and I think that's the part, right? You don't necessarily have to stand with your arms on your hands on your hip or your arms folded and things of that nature. Just allow your presence to exude confidence. That's kind of like what I would say. And if you work on it and do it the right way, if your presence get to the point of exuding confidence, then people will start sensing confidence in you, and then they will start leaning towards you in that fashion.
The Storm Majors pose. Stand up there
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, we see it all the
yeah.
time.
I learned it as an E7. I was like, yeah, I think I got perfected it by the time I was an E7. Practiced a little bit as an E6.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. All right. Number three, the 90-second Lazarus Protocol. Resurrect boldness mid meltdown. So, when panic hits, cortisol floods your brain for 90 full seconds. Celebrities use somatic Lazarus, which is like box breathing and tactile anchors, to hijack this window and reboot confidence. I think, let's see, I'm trying to imagine how to explain it to it actually makes sense. So a tactile anchor is like you physically touching a thing to kind of ground yourself. I know some people, and I don't think this kind of fits into the exact scenario, but I know some people believe in like walking outside with no shoes on because there's a direct connection between humanity and the earth, and so that kind of grounds you. There are other things you can ground that you can use to ground you. Some people use rings to kind of do this so that it kind of keeps them calm, stuff like that. So there are other things that you can do to kind of help you get grounded, so forth and so on. I think for this one, I want to start off with the scenario, right? Yeah, we're gonna talk about Raj for a second.
Hey, Raj.
During a panic attack before a keynote, Raj grabs his phone and plays a voice memo from his mentor. You've survived harder. Breathe. Now, go in the room. He inhales deeply for 90 seconds. So, the question that I have surrounding Raj, which Lazarus protocol, I'm sorry, let me get here. Which Lazarus protocol tactic is Raj using to resurrect boldness? A. Distracting himself with humor. B. Weaponizing a covenantal voice note and controlled breathing to reset his nervous system. C. Focusing on worst case scenarios to desensitize themselves. Or D. Rushing through the speech to end the discomfort. I'll say it again. Which Lazarus protocol tactic is Raj using to resurrect boldness? A. Distracting himself with humor. B. Weaponizing a covenantal voice note to and controlled breathing to reset his nervous system. C. Focusing on worst case scenarios to desensitize himself. Or D. Rushing through the speech to end the discomfort.
I'm going to say bravo. B.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So was everybody else in the chat, which is good, right?
They said B.
Yeah, they're saying
Oh,
B.
smart chat.
That's what they are, man. Um, Pre-recorded affirmations plus breath work intercept cortisol spikes, converting panic into actionable energy. And I think that's a very important thing for everybody to understand. The same energy that exists in nerves also exists in excitement. So once you get to the point, I'm sorry, in nervousness also exists in excitements. Um, yeah, I did like the bees apparently. So we got to learn how to use that same energy the right way, and I think this is one. I think this is one way of actually doing it. So thank you everybody for your responses, everybody in the chat for what you're saying. Again, those are the three tactics, but I also want to kind of give us a bonus, which is called covenant confidence. Why trust networks outlive self-help gimmicks. Now, I think this is important because when you think about it, true unstoppability isn't solo, it's covenantal. Navy SEALs, A-listers, and billionaires thrive because oath-bound teams shield their neurochemistry from societal malware. And I think we've seen it oh so many times. Like regardless of who you're talking about or what arena or professional, whatever that looks like, if you really get into the life of that person, you'll find that they have a team, they have a support system. NFL players have a football team. You see A-list actors, they have a team that surrounds them at all time. people to uplift them and motivate them and so forth and so on. So I think the question that everybody must answer: how would your life change if you treated boldness like a team sport instead of a solo grind? That's number one. And then number two, what's the first confidence play you'd run with your crew? So the question again is, how would your life change if you treated boldness like a team sport instead of a solo grind? And what's the first confidence play you'd run with your crew?
Um, how
And
would my life change?
as you're prepping that, I want everybody in the chat to answer this question as well. Don't just wait on God. Don't wait on the with the phone to answer the question. I want to see your responses as well. So go ahead.
Yeah. How would my life change if I treated boldness like a team sport instead of a solo grind? The one thing I keep going back to is one thing my mind is the first thing that my mind is racing towards is fitness. I'm on a solo grind. When I was in the military, there was always somebody in the military who you could work out with. Now, most of the time I still worked out by myself, but every once in a while I worked out with somebody. But there was always somebody in the gym. There was always somebody you knew. So um for me, I would treat bonus kind of like that, that get up, that grind, that hustle early in the morning, rucking or running or doing burpees or whatever it is, that grind, and then if I go back to the first confidence play I'd run with my crew, um, I'd I'd come up I'd come up with some sort of challenge that would help boost confidence. So what I mean by that is everybody has their own level of confidence in whatever it is, physical activity. There are some people who are confident that they can go out today and go run, an ultra marathon. And there are some people who are confident that they go out there and they can lift up a whole car. Everybody's different. Everybody's physical fitness level is different. So what I would do on my team, if we the grinders, then I would have everybody to come up with some sort of play or some sort of goal or some sort of routine or fitness activity that they could come up with something challenging that once they got through with it, that would help boost their confidence and whatever that physical activity would be. So say for instance, someone was a runner and they used to running 5K. So maybe your challenge is to run 2 5Ks within a certain amount of time or run a 10K or whatever. So that's kind of how I would do it. First I'd have my team, we'd be grinding and stuff like this. However, it would be better, I think, because I would have a lot more like-minded people surrounding me on a regular or more consistent basis. And then the confidence play would be to have each individual go out there and create some sort of goal that would, when completed, it would help boost their confidence.
Yeah, I like that. I think for me, how would your life change if you treated boldness like a team sport instead of a solo grind? I think what you will find is that you would have what I tend to call achievement stacking, because we would literally be rooting for each other for the next achievement. This
Yeah.
person gets the next achievement, this person gets the next achievement. So it becomes a round robin of achievement within the team. And then we collectively celebrate each person's achievement, which now becomes kind of like that dopamine hike for the entire team. Right. And again, I think it works that way collectively when it comes down to it. So now it's like not only do we celebrate each other's achievement, but it motivates you to push harder and achieve more and so forth and so on. And what's the first confidence play you will run? I mean, when I go back to it, it kind of just sounds like what I just said, the dopamine override. When a person says, I want to do this thing, then, they start to get a little nervous or whatever the case may be. Like now we start dopamine stacking, like put this on top of this, like do this, you can do this. Now we're cheering for each other, we're rooting each other on, we're helping them, practice to prepare for this thing. So now we become kind of like accountability partners for each other. And kind of like somebody used the word catapult. I think that's a great word to use here, because we get to catapult them into a space of belief that they did not believe that they could actually do. It's almost like you don't have the faith to do a thing, but yet I got faith. I got enough faith to hold the space of faith for you while you're actually doing the thing. And then once you achieve it, you got the excitement. And then now that's a reminder that you can do more than what you ever thought you could achieve. So that's just kind of how I look at it. Because I think when you have a team like that that's actually rooting for each other and pulling for each other and looking for each other to achieve, I think you just can't lose. You can't lose.
Mhm.
Um, so greatly appreciate your response. I'm sorry, you had something else you want to add?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, greatly appreciate your response. Appreciate everybody in the chat. We got a couple of true false, and it ain't gonna take long, I promise, because we're only doing three.
Okay.
And then we're gonna move on. So, first one out the gate: true, false. The 90-second Lazarus Protocol prioritizes suppressing anxiety over transmuting it into fuel for audacity. I
The
say again,
audacity of this question.
it's the audacity of this question. I say again, the 90-second Lazarus Protocol prioritizes suppressing anxiety over transmuting it into fuel for audacity. True or false?
Oh, let me get my I'm gonna say false.
Okay. Very well. I definitely agree with that. That is 100% false. The Lazarus Protocol doesn't bury fear. It harvests cortisol spikes and redirects them into laser focus using breathing or tactile triggers. Okay. Very good. And I see everybody is on that as well. Next one. The brain's neuroplasticity means you can only reshape confidence circuits through isolated personal efforts. I'll say again, the brain's neuroplasticity means you can only reshape confidence circuits through isolated personal effort. I threw a curveball in there. That's all right.
Yeah,
You got it. You
I'm
in there.
gonna say false, but my add-on is I do think that this is one way that you can help your confidence, but not the only way to reshape. So because only, I'm gonna say false, but I do think that it is one way to help reshape confidence circuits.
Okay. Very good. Very good. I see everybody else is agreeing with false as well. Yeah, I did say only. You're right. So covenant bonds actively rewire your brain by triggering safety hormones, oxytocin, and mirroring confidence behaviors. Trusted allies don't just cheerlead, they create neurochemical conditions for structural brain change. Very good in your response, sir, in chat. Keep them up, keep them up, keep them up. Last
Chat.
true false. The mirror neuron hijack works only, there's that word again, if others consciously admire you. Ambivalent or hostile audience are immune to your confidence. The, I say it again, the mirror neuron hijack works only if others consciously admire you. Ambivalent or hostile audience are immune to your confidence. True or false?
Let me get that big old F. That old F.
That's the big old F. You're right, sir. The answer is false. Okay. Mirror neurons operate subconsciously. Even skeptics will philosophically mirror your anchored confidence if you hold unshakable neurochemical dominance. Biology overrides biases every time. Greatly appreciate those responses. Greatly appreciate everybody in the chat. So, as always, this takes us to our bittersweet moment of the conversation where we are getting ready to get into our actionable thoughts. All right, who's first, me or you?
Me, blow me up.
All right, I got you.
All right, folks. I have confidence that this was a good show. You know, have nothing to do with my ego. I just thought that this was a good one. And with that being said, I think you should go back and watch it. Now for my actionable advice, continues. The title of the show is called Three Secrets to Unstoppable Confidence. And you know, as we went through the show, Coach gave y'all some, but here are three things that I think I think that we should kind of add to that. I think these are three things that will help you on your journey of, you know, being confident or coming into your confidence or remaining confidence. And I think those three things are is resilience. I think that resilience is a good way to help build your confidence. When you go through something and then you get over it, that helps with your resilience. And then now you can have more confidence that you can do that thing over again. Another thing is the willingness. It's not always easy to like one of the questions was talking about, you know, what's the part when it came to, hold on, I'm losing my train of thought, but I'm gonna get it back. Anyway, the willingness, I'll get back to it if I can remember, but the willingness in general. And then the other part of this third piece of this is the discipline. I think in order to have unstoppable confidence, I think discipline is something that you have to consider. Like, the discipline is what gets us to, you know do self-assessments about ourselves, to be able to learn from other people, to know who to listen to and who not to listen to. And all of these things, composed or added to with everything that we talked about today, I think can also help us create unstoppable confidence. And that is my actionable advice.
All right, I love it. Before we get started, I just want to say I greatly appreciate this conversation. I appreciate everybody in the chat and what you guys were saying. It was awesome. My actionable advice is going back to where we started at when we started dissecting the word confidence. I think it's important for us to understand why we struggle with confidence. We can talk about several different things as it pertains to confidence, but part of me understanding and dissecting my why about confidence is helping me to understand how the technique that is most effective to helping me become more confident. So that means I may have to have a long conversation with myself. I may need to be honest with myself. I may need to go back and unpack some things about myself. I have enough evidence in my life to show me where my confidence was less desirable. What does those situations look like? What was the circumstances that presented it? And then kind of backwards plan to that so you can get back to your why. Once you understand that, now we can start talking about the techniques that you can use to become more confident. Then practice that consistently moving forward. If you need some covenantal partners, find somebody that you can trust, somebody who will be honest with you. You don't want a yes person. You want a person that's going to give you the hard answers when you fail to show up for yourself. I think that's important. So that being said, that is my actionable advice for this conversation. And as always, we greatly value. You got something for the people, man?
No, man, thank you for muting my mic.
Jump
But
it.
no, man, just but back with the confidence thing, back to the show, you mentioned, I think this is one of those good shows. We talk about confidence, and Coach talked about it too. Is we want to, at the end of the day, walk away feeling like, or thinking that we gave you, the audience, a good show. And I think this is one of those. Sometimes, you know, I mean, just when you do episodes, when you do shows, you're going to have some shows that they're going to stick out more than others, just like any other TV show or any that we watch. There are some shows that's going to highlight, and it's always good when you look back on the show and everybody's like, you know what, man, that was a good one. You know what I mean? And that's how I think about this one. It was another good one. We're live tonight. The energy was here tonight. The energy was there. So it just made for overall a great show. So chat and everybody watching, we greatly appreciate you guys being here and being part of the show.
Yeah. Last thing. This is Coach's Corner. We
Yeah,
ain't gonna talk about what was on TV last night. If we do stuff like that, it might be in jest, but we
yeah.
talk about stuff that's gonna help you grow. Stuff that's gonna stimulate your mind. That's to me, I
Mhm.
think that's what coaches are supposed to do. Hence
Yep.
Coach's Corner. So listen, we greatly appreciate you guys. We value you and we hope that you greatly appreciate this week's conversation. So that being said, on behalf of the Uncle Junior, the consistency coach, and myself, we greatly appreciate you. We value you. Again, enjoy the rest of your evening. We look forward to seeing you Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on The Hearts of Men, led by that young man this week. So we're excited to see what he's going to talk about. That being said, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else, and we will see you next week.